of them. Our oldest is 13, youngest before crew is 8, so we have a lot of help. All the babies, well, I call them all babies. Yeah. All our kids love to hold the babies.
For years, Joanna Gaines was the heartbeat of Magnolia. A design visionary, a mother of 5, and half of America's favorite home renovating couple. In early 2025, the calm yet radiant presence of Joanna Gaines, long cherished by fans for her creative brilliance and quiet grace, unexpectedly slipped from the spotlight. Best known for co-hosting Fixer Upper, her visionary leadership at Magnolia Network, and the lifestyle empire she built with husband Chip Gaines, Joanna's life took a sudden turn when she collapsed during a shoot for Mini Renee. Initially brushed off as exhaustion, her condition worsened quickly. Within hours, she was taken to the hospital. Days later, Chip abruptly canceled all his upcoming engagements and quietly stepped back from business negotiations, including a major television contract. The cause of this upheaval soon emerged. Joanna had been diagnosed with systemic lupus erythematosus, SLE, an autoimmune disease affecting multiple organ systems that would demand long-term rest and treatment. Unbeknownst to many, Joanna's health had been in gradual decline for months. As Mini Renee pushed into its final production stages in the late 2024, she often appeared tired, lacking her usual spark. Crew members took note of her increasingly frail figure, her habit of clutching her sides while reviewing blueprints, and her subdued energy on set. Despite the clear signs, production continued. Deadlines loomed and Joanna, ever the professional, pushed through. But in February 2025, the toll became too heavy. She collapsed again just before filming began on a new project segment, and subsequent medical evaluations confirmed a severe lupus flare-up. At first, the news was kept private. When Joanna disappeared from both Mini Renee and the Magnolia Network's lineup, fans began speculating. Questions intensified after the couple canceled a high-profile Today Show appearance meant to kick off Magnolia's new content calendar. The only public update came in a brief, carefully worded statement. Joanna is taking time to care for herself and her family. It offered little explanation, but said everything. The situation was serious. Public concern grew further after a leaked behind-the-scenes clip showed a visibly weak Joanna being helped into a vehicle. The video spread across social media with viewers noting her pale expression and withdrawn demeanor. Then, in early May, Chip shared an intimate photo on Instagram, his hand wrapped around hers, captioned, "The light is always there, but sometimes it needs a little protection to continue shining." The caption revealed the emotional weight of the moment. Days later, the couple posted a 2-minute video, filmed simply in their backyard. Sitting beside Chip, Joanna spoke candidly. "I'm facing some health challenges. It's not easy to talk about, but I know I'm not alone." Chip added, "We're learning to slow down, and I'll be here until Joe is ready to come back." There was no production value, just raw honesty and an unmistakable air of vulnerability. After that, Magnolia quietly adjusted its pace. Filming for Mini Renee was put on hold, and Joanna's name began to recede from executive and creative listings. Media appearances were canceled without explanation. There was no grand announcement, but her absence was deeply felt. For her husband Chip, the transformation was profound. Once the exuberant, hammer-wielding face of the brand, he became subdued and introspective. He turned down multiple new ventures, including a global version of Fixer Upper, to focus fully on Joanna's care and their children's well-being. Though still involved in high-level business operations, he operated in the background, often leaving meetings early to be home. Meanwhile, a quiet shift occurred inside the Gaines household. Their children, once seen only briefly in public, began stepping into roles of significance, especially their 17-year-old daughter, Ella. Having spent years observing her mother at work, Ella stepped in to bridge the gap between Joanna and the Magnolia team. Initially, she passed along Joanna's design preferences or relayed instructions. But as weeks went by, she began making decisions herself, handling edits, reviewing collaborations, and even guiding the tone of Magnolia's social media presence. Though she held no formal title, Ella became the heart of the operation. The rest of the family found their own ways to contribute. Young Crew would ask each day, "How is mommy today?" and create crayon drawings for her. MEK took responsibility for managing Joanna's meals, following her nutritionist's guidance to the letter. Duke accompanied Chip to meetings, quietly absorbing and later reporting details back to his mom. These gestures were not asked of them, they arose naturally. One employee recalled seeing all 5 children carefully inspecting upcoming product packaging in a warehouse. Watching through a security camera, Joanna wept, not out of sorrow, but from seeing her children so lovingly step into her shoes. Although Joanna withdrew from the public, her essence still lingered in Magnolia's creative direction. Occasionally, she would send brief video messages or jot down ideas from her bed. Ella compiled one such message into a short video. Clips of the family around the dinner table, overlaid with Joanna's soft narration. "I've been running for 20 years and now it's time to slow down. Not to stop, but so my kids can keep up." The post struck a nerve, going viral and accumulating millions of views within days. In June, Joanna returned to the Silos, Magnolia's symbolic headquarters in Waco, for the first time in months. Her visit wasn't publicized. It was organized quietly by Ella, who dubbed the event "Welcome Home, Mom." There was no media presence, just family, staff, and close friends. When Joanna walked in, bundled in a coat and noticeably thinner, the applause that erupted took her by surprise. She broke down in tears. Crew clung to her leg while Ella walked her from booth to booth, describing the new product designs, many of which were inspired by her mother's early sketches. For the first time in months, Joanna smiled without restraint. Chip's transformation was just as striking. The man once known for his unshakable energy had become a quiet caretaker. He turned down countless offers, instead choosing to stay home, cook meals, manage medications, and ferry their children to and from school. Industry insiders were stunned by his retreat, but to Chip, it was never a question. "When your partner is in the fight of her life," he said to a close friend, "you don't chase cameras. You hold their hand." As Joanna learned to adapt to her new limitations, Chip encouraged her to write, not for public consumption, but as therapy. She began journaling everything: the first signs of fatigue, her fears, her gratitude, her pain. The writing began to take shape. Chip gently proposed turning it into a book, not as a public memoir, but a legacy for their children. Joanna agreed, and the project took on deeper meaning. The book, scheduled to be published by Magnolia Books in early 2026, is a raw account of chronic illness, identity, and finding peace amid chaos. Ella later announced that all proceeds would go toward autoimmune disease research. Inside Magnolia, leadership continued to evolve. Longtime creative directors were promoted and new voices emerged. Programming on Magnolia Network began to shift, featuring more reflective documentary-style content alongside reruns of Fixer Upper and Mini Renee. Joanna's influence lingered in the aesthetic, but her hands were no longer steering every detail. Instead, her values were now embodied by a team she had mentored for years. Surprisingly, Magnolia didn't falter. If anything, fans felt more connected than ever. Comments flooded in with support. "You gave us years of beauty and inspiration," one fan wrote. "Now let us give something back." Many shared their own experiences with chronic illness, expressing gratitude for Joanna's vulnerability. Social media posts from Chip shifted as well. Gone were the humorous stunts. In their place came quiet photos of steaming coffee mugs, warm sunlight, or a glimpse of Joanna resting peacefully. Captions were poetic and simple. "She smiled today. The house is quiet, but the heart is full." There was no announcement of retirement, no farewell tour. The Gaines family didn't leave the stage, they simply changed how they occupied it. In doing so, they redefined strength not as productivity, but as presence. In a culture that demands constant movement, they chose stillness. And in that stillness, their true character emerged. Joanna's understated attendance at the spring 2025 Magnolia Design Review was another meaningful moment. She didn't speak or lead, she just observed. Afterward, she left handwritten notes for the team, noticing small details, like the curve of a furniture leg or the softness of a fabric tone. "She still sees everything," one designer said, visibly emotional. "Even through the pain, she notices us." Today, Chip and Joanna remain in Waco, surrounded by their children and grounded in their values. Their media presence is quieter, their lives more focused, but the impact they've had only deepens. They no longer embody the idea of doing it all, but rather the grace of letting go, trusting others, and honoring one's limits. Joanna's illness didn't undo their empire, instead, it redefined it, making it more human, more enduring. As spring ripened into summer in 2025, the Gaines family settled into a rhythm that was unfamiliar, yet comforting in its own way. Gone were the early mornings packed with filming schedules and high-stakes meetings. In their place came quiet mornings on the porch, meals shared without interruption, and family walks that served as a form of therapy more than routine. Though the world still saw them as icons inside their Waco farmhouse, they were simply a family navigating change. Joanna's lupus diagnosis had not just altered her health, it had shifted the very foundation of Magnolia. The empire she had co-built was now moving at a different pace. No longer driven by constant content releases or expansion plans, the business took on a softer cadence, one that echoed Joanna's journey of healing. It wasn't just a physical illness, it was an emotional and spiritual reckoning. She had to learn how to be still in a world that praised movement, how to trust others with her vision, and how to embrace help when independence had always been her strength. Chip, once the ever-buoyant personality behind the brand, quietly stepped into a different role. His energy remained, but it had transformed from outward enthusiasm to inward devotion. There was no script for what he now had to do, no blueprint for navigating both a business and a marriage through a health crisis. Yet he handled it all with the same kind of care he once applied to a crumbling farmhouse. With patience, determination, and love. He began organizing his days around Joanna's needs, whether it was sitting beside her during treatment or ensuring her favorite meals were ready when she could eat. Chip poured himself into the invisible labor of caregiving. The once loud renovation leader now found joy in smaller victories, helping Joanna out of bed without pain, hearing her laugh during dinner, or seeing her energy return even briefly during a family board game. Behind the scenes, the Magnolia staff rallied. Without official announcements or corporate restructuring, roles naturally shifted. Creative directors who had previously reported to Joanna began working under Ella's guidance. Meetings were shorter, more focused, and deeply personal. Staff members shared their own stories of illness and caregiving, and the office began to feel less like a workplace and more like a support system. Ella, despite her youth, proved to be a natural steward of her mother's legacy. Her leadership wasn't loud or performative. Instead, she listened, asked thoughtful questions, and honored her mother's preferences while allowing space for her own voice to emerge. She adjusted marketing timelines, softened design palettes, and coordinated with partners in a way that preserved Magnolia's identity while gently evolving it. Industry professionals who initially doubted her abilities soon recognized her quiet competence. One longtime partner commented, "She's her mother's daughter in the best ways, but she's also something new." At home, each of the Gaines children found their own way to contribute. MEK, methodical and nurturing, became Joanna's at-home nurse of sorts. She prepared weekly menus based on doctor-recommended foods, managed a pill chart, and even arranged the medicine cabinet with precision. Her devotion didn't come from obligation, it came from love. She once told a friend, "I just want her to feel safe and cared for, that's all." Duke, shy and introspective, stepped up in his own way. Observing Chip during meetings, he began taking notes for Joanna to review when she felt well enough. His quiet presence became a bridge between his parents, carrying updates, concerns, and ideas. In doing so, he discovered a part of himself he hadn't known before, a deep appreciation for design and a surprising talent for organization. Crew, the youngest, became Joanna's daily dose of light. Too young to understand the complexities of lupus, he responded to his mother's illness with innocence and unfiltered love. Each morning, he would draw pictures of their family, the farmhouse, or just silly doodles, and place them by her bedside. He whispered things like, "I made you a rainbow," or "This one has healing stars," believing in his own magical way that his art could make her better. And then there was the house itself. The iconic Gaines farmhouse, once a symbol of renovation success, transformed into a sanctuary of healing. The kitchen became the heart of the home again, not just for cooking, but for connection. They gathered there for morning updates, late-night talks, and spontaneous laughter. The garden saw more use too. On good days, Joanna would walk slowly along the lavender path, hand in hand with Chip or one of the kids. On hard days, she would simply sit on a bench, wrapped in a blanket, breathing in the Texas air. Joanna's healing wasn't linear. Lupus, by its nature, came in unpredictable waves. Some weeks she would gain strength, walking further or sitting through longer meetings by video call. Other weeks she could barely get out of bed. Yet through it all, her mind remained sharp. When she had the energy, she sent voice memos to Ella with small design insights or ideas for the Magnolia Journal. She offered edits to articles, gave notes on upcoming product lines, and even scribbled a few sketches for a fall wreath collection. These were her breadcrumbs, tiny pieces of herself left for her team and family to follow. In moments of quiet, Joanna wrote, what started as fragmented journal entries became more cohesive over time. The act of putting pen to paper gave her power, a sense of control over a body that often failed her. Writing allowed her to process the grief of stepping back, the fear of the unknown, and the gratitude for her family's unwavering love. Her book wasn't conceived as a public project, it was deeply personal. But as her words took shape, Chip gently suggested it could help others too. She agreed, cautiously at first, then with conviction. Magnolia Books, the publishing arm of the brand, committed to releasing the memoir in early 2026. It would be a different kind of project, less commercial, more heartfelt. The team agreed all profits would go to autoimmune research. For Joanna, it wasn't about sales, it was about connection. If one person reads this, she wrote in the preface, and feels less alone in their illness, it will have been worth every word. The public's reaction to Joanna's absence had been emotional, but largely respectful. Fans flooded social media with support, sharing personal stories of chronic illness, resilience, and the power of family. Hashtags like Neonics Magnolia Strong and For JoJo trended quietly, a testament to how deeply she had touched people. Not just with her designs, but with her honesty. Magnolia's programming changed too. With Joanna and Chip off camera, the network leaned into storytelling. They began airing quieter, documentary-style features, stories about craftspeople, slow living, and community resilience. Reruns of Fixer Upper gained new life, now viewed through the lens of nostalgia rather than reruns. And without even trying, the brand became more human. Even as she stepped away, Joanna remained present in spirit. Her taste continued to influence product lines, and her voice echoed in the team's choices. But the pressure was gone. She no longer needed to be everywhere at once, or to prove her worth through non-stop work. She had already built something extraordinary, and now she was learning that maintaining it didn't require her to run, but to trust. One of the most poignant moments of the year came during Magnolia's internal spring design review in June. It was unpublicized, just a routine team gathering. Joanna arrived quietly, wearing a long cardigan and a gentle smile. She didn't lead the meeting, she didn't speak. She just sat in the back, observing, eyes bright. Afterwards, she left handwritten notes on each designer's chair, small compliments that proved she had noticed every detail. For the team, those notes meant more than any public praise. "She sees us," one designer said, tears in her eyes, even now, especially now. As 2025 neared its end, the Gaines family settled into a new normal. Magnolia, once defined by its dynamic duo, now found strength in shared leadership. The business wasn't about two people anymore. It was about the values they'd embedded in every corner: creativity, authenticity, and compassion. Chip remained active behind the scenes, though he continued to decline public appearances. When asked if he'd return to television, his answer was simple: not until Joe is okay. Their life was no longer measured in episodes or magazine deadlines. It was measured in family dinners, quiet walks, and moments of laughter between doctor visits. They didn't need to prove anything anymore. They had already done what most never could: build something lasting, and when life demanded it, let go with grace. In many ways, what the Gaineses were going through wasn't just a health crisis, it was a transformation. They were becoming something new. Not just business owners, not just media personalities, but stewards of something deeper: love in its truest, most enduring form. Theirs was no longer a story about renovation. It was about restoration, of body, of family, of faith. And so, as fans looked for signs of Joanna's return, what they received instead was something more powerful: evidence of strength in stillness, and beauty in choosing presence over performance. Joanna may not return to the spotlight as she once did, but she has already left her mark, not just on homes, but on hearts. She once said, "The most important spaces we build are the ones that let us heal." And now, surrounded by the family she built and the company she nurtured, Joanna Gaines is living in that space, quietly, intentionally, and above all, together. Joanna Gaines didn't vanish. She evolved. Through illness, uncertainty, and the quiet collapse of her old world, she and her family discovered something more powerful than success. If this story moved you or reminded you of your own turning point, let us know in the comments below. And if you're drawn to the hidden stories behind the people we think we know, subscribe.